You have these Twitter posters. They say, I'm schizo, I'm crazy, I'm a masculinist, all this kind of stuff. And in the end, the thrust of the message is, vote for J.D. Vance, vote for a Republican. There's an obvious contradiction there. And the contradiction can only be explained, as I said, by the fact that the entire thing is a psyop. The whole purpose, the whole reason that entire scene exists is to take young white men who are becoming very radical, who are becoming very disillusioned with the system and its lack of efficacy. Young white men are becoming apathetic. They're saying, we don't even care about politics. We don't need to vote for more pro-Israel stuff. We don't need to vote for the business interests. We're going to vote Republican for more corporate tax cuts. They create this ecosystem with this appealing message, pandering to radical young white men, only in the end to tell them, in the moment of decision when it counts, that it is your duty to go and vote for a Republican.
This is the entire scam laid bare in one sentence. Fuentes has identified the core mechanism of political control in the digital age: create fake radical content to capture genuinely disaffected people, then redirect that energy into safe electoral channels. Think about how sophisticated this harvesting operation is. Republican strategists studied what actually appeals to young white men who feel abandoned by the system. Then they packaged all of that into social media personas designed to build parasocial relationships with their target demographic. These aren't real people expressing authentic views. They're focus-grouped political products designed to manipulate specific psychological triggers. The genius of this operation is that it gives young men permission to feel radical and edgy while ultimately channeling them toward the most establishment possible outcome: voting Republican no matter what. It's rebellion as product, dissent as marketing strategy. They get to feel like revolutionaries while doing exactly what the system wants them to do.
The point is, there is no real choice here. There is no alternative. What do you think you're going to get with Gavin Newsom? Immigration. What are you going to get with J.D. Vance? Immigration. What are you going to get with Gavin Newsom? You're going to get some liberal platitudes about a melting pot. What are you going to get from Vance? Basically the same thing.
Vance embodies everything these supposed radicals claim to be fighting against. He's a creature of the establishment, Yale Law School, Silicon Valley, created and funded by Peter Thiel. His wife is an immigrant who took spots in elite institutions that could have gone to Americans. But here's what makes Fuentes' analysis so sharp: he's not just making a racial argument, he's making a class argument. Vance represents everything wrong with the modern Republican Party. He's a fake populist who got rich by writing a book that blamed working-class white people for their own dispossession. He went to elite schools, worked for elite firms, and married into the global elite. The idea that this man represents ordinary white Americans is absurd on its face.
And young white men in particular, they're not the only ones, but young white men in particular are starting to say, hey man, what gives? Why would I fight and die in the military for a country that isn't even white, that I don't even recognize? Why am I going to go and work hard and pay taxes to pay for a bunch of non-white people on welfare? And where are we going to go? Is there even a home for us? I'm going to live in a neighborhood where I'm a minority in a country my ancestors built? I'm going to send my kids to a school where they're a minority in the country that my forefathers and I built? It's ridiculous. White men are checking out because they're saying, this isn't really ours. This is not our country. It's being taken from us. We are being dispossessed. We used to have the power. We fought for the country. We built the country. And now it's being taken from us and we're being told it was never yours. And if you feel bad about that, that's evil. So white men are checking out. They're saying, why try? Why bother? Why work hard? Why fight for it? Where do I go? Where do I fit in? Where's my home? Where's the country my grandparents grew up in? And as a result, young white men are looking for a little acknowledgement. They're looking for representation. There's that word. Black people get their representation. Hispanics get their representation. Jews get their representation. Their interests are defended by ethnic interest groups, the NAACP, the La Raza Legal Group, the ADL. And what do white people get? Nothing. So white people are saying this isn't really a great deal for us. We kind of want America to remain white. We have interests. We would like our interests defended. One of them is we don't want the country to become like the rest of the world. If we want to live in Africa, we would go there. If we want to live in Mexico, we would go there. Now in comes J.D. Vance. In comes Bronze Age Pervert, Peter Thiel, all these different projects. Man's World Magazine, Passage Press, Sovereign House. And the message is, hey, young white man, how about some cool NFTs? How about a cool magazine and some stupid shit and parties and all that? And young white men go, yeah, okay, I like some of this. I like these old books. I like this radical stuff. And in the end, the message is vote for J.D. Vance. This is our guy. This guy's based. This guy's against immigration. Oh, you're going to love him. If you like Bronze Age Pervert, you're going to love J.D. Vance. People that are old school like that, we're not okay with that kind of thing. But that's J.D. Vance's family. The guy went to Yale. The guy's in Silicon Valley. He's very cosmopolitan. He wrote a New York Times best-selling book. They did a Netflix series about it. He was a contributor on CNN. He met his Indian wife at Yale Law School. They were set up by literally the author of Tiger Mom, Amy Chua. These people are not like us. You have all these young white men, and the GOP self-consciously fed them, unloaded all this shit on them. Oh, yeah, mass deportations. Oh, we're based now. Oh, yeah, we're nationalist. Oh, you got 50 days. They're all going back. And all these young white men said, oh, yeah, all right. This is where they were already. They said, border wall, no more immigrants. That's what white America said. 90% of the Trump voters were white in 2016. And when Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania went for Trump in 2016, you know what they said? They said, we're done with Obama. No immigration, build a wall, keep these people out, get them out of here. Get these illegals out, build a giant wall. We are full, we have had enough. No more diversity. 10 years later, we reelected Trump after he got convicted of crimes. And what are they floating to us in 2028? A fat dork with a brown wife and kids. She's an immigrant. Seriously? It's insane. Really, dude? You really gonna burn it all down? That's not funny, bro. Who will cut the taxes? Who will cut the taxes? Who will cut the red tape for businesses and innovation? Who will rebuild the military with Lockheed Martin contracts? Like, seriously? And this is where it's like, you know, I am a frog. I am a groiper. And the right wing deserves a better class of trolls. And I'm going to give it to them. All you people care about is politics. All you people care about is low energy politics, voting, the elections, the midterms, Republicans in Congress. These Bronze Age warriors suck. Our Bronze Age warriors are nude bodybuilders. They suck. They suck. They preach vitalism and aesthetics. And Prometheus stole the fire from the gods. And then they turn around and tell you, hey man, we gotta vote Republican in this election because Mike Johnson needs the votes in the midterms or else we're never gonna make corporate taxes 21%. Corporate taxes, immigration policy, voting? This is the Bronze Age. This is the Bronze Age, man. What happened? At the end of the day, if all these people have to tell you, forget all the crap, okay? These are anonymous people. We don't know who these people are, okay? You see my face. You know everything about me. I've been on the internet since I was 18 years old. These are fake pictures, fake profiles, pushing a bullshit fake brand. Forget about that for a second. Forget about the Greek statue pictures. Forget about the stupid websites. MythPilot, another bullshit website. Forget about the pictures, the fucking stupid posts. Okay? The memes, the edgelording. If at the end of the day, your message is always vote Republican in the next election, you are a political shill. Do you understand that? If all of it amounts to, at the end of the day, you as a young white man need to vote Republican in the next election, then you are being tricked by political shills. Do you understand that?
The reaction to Fuentes' meme was absolutely perfect because it revealed the true nature of these accounts. When their core contradiction was exposed, they immediately dropped their edgy personas and started sounding like standard GOP operatives worried about election outcomes. Suddenly, the meme warriors who post about bringing down power grids and civilizational collapse are concerned about tax policy and midterm elections. This is the tell that exposes every political grift. When their actual interests are threatened, they reveal what they really care about. These accounts don't actually want to burn anything down. They want young white men to vote Republican so they can get favorable treatment from GOP donors and maybe land consulting contracts or speaking gigs. Many of these accounts are run by people with direct financial connections to Republican political operations. They're not organic influencers who develop followings through authentic content. They're astroturfed personas designed to capture and redirect genuine political energy toward establishment goals. The whole ecosystem, the magazines, the publishing houses, the podcasts, the fitness content, it's all designed to create a pipeline from genuine disaffection to Republican voter registration. They give young men just enough red pill content to feel enlightened, then gradually steer them toward supporting the exact same politicians who created the problems they're complaining about.
I'm a 27-year-old white man. The Republican Party has never, ever in my entire life done anything for me to make my life better, to make my life easier. Never. Never. What are the kinds of issues that I'm facing? Home ownership is unaffordable. Has the Republican Congress done anything about that? Absolutely not. The job market is cooked. It's cooked because of H-1B visas. It's cooked because of high-skilled and low-skilled immigration. Has the GOP done anything about that? Absolutely not. They sent us to war in Iraq, Afghanistan. Now they want us to fight a war in Iran. This country's cooked because of feminism. Things like no-fault divorce have made marriage very unattractive. Do Republicans even talk about that? Absolutely not. College is unaffordable. Have the Republicans tried to wipe student loans or make college more affordable? Absolutely not. Name one thing that the Republican Party has ever done explicitly for young white men, for their direct and tangible benefit. They have done nothing. They cut the corporate tax rate. They bombed Iran and Syria for Israel. They moved the embassy. They've deregulated the oil and gas industry, deregulated the tech industry. They've done all these things for the billionaire oligarchs, all these things for the business interests, for the foreign interests. They've even done things for women and minorities in an effort to appease them to expand their vote with those groups. They've done nothing for me, ever. And yet they act like they own me. They expect my vote. Every election they say, vote for us. It's the most important election of a lifetime. Vote for us. The Democrat will be far worse. Vote for us. We got to hold the line. Hold the line against what exactly? Against what? Censorship? Republicans participated in that and did nothing to stop it. Hold the line against what? The J6 prosecutions? They did nothing. They didn't even release the Capitol Hill footage. Many of them didn't even get a pardon. Hold the line against what exactly? Immigration? Biden brought in 10 million illegals and Trump won't even deport them now. They have done nothing.
This section is absolutely devastating because Fuentes systematically destroys the idea that the Republican Party represents the interests of young white men. He goes through every major issue affecting this demographic: housing costs, employment, student loans, feminism, foreign wars, and shows how Republicans have either made these problems worse or completely ignored them. The Republicans cut corporate tax rates while young people can't afford homes. They support H-1B visas that depress wages while claiming to care about American workers. They send young men to die in foreign wars while doing nothing about the cultural and demographic changes destroying their communities at home. This is why the Bronze Age pervert psyop exists, to prevent young white men from recognizing that the Republican Party is their enemy, not their ally. The GOP needs their votes but has no intention of serving their interests. So they create fake radical influencers to make these voters feel heard while ensuring they remain politically powerless.
And here's what I would say to the young white men out there. Think long and hard. What has the Republican Party really done for you? In what way is your life better at all? For many young white men, they've actually made it worse, or they stood by while things have gotten worse. They created the vaccine. They let BLM tear through the cities. Stood by while all these big tech companies censored everybody. It's endless. All you really have as a young white man is your vote. That's it. That's all you have. We live in an oligarchy. You are a prole, okay? You are a serf. You own nothing. You do not have wealth. You do not have a house. You do not have a good job. All you have is your vote. It is the billionaires, it is the oligarchs that make the decisions for all of us. It is the billionaires that make the giant campaign contributions. They get the cabinet positions. They have phone calls and meetings with congressmen and senators. They have fundraisers with the president, and they have access to him. They make the decisions in the public and private sector that affect all of us. What do we have? We have our vote. That's it. And I'll tell you something. You know, people go to work, they pay their taxes. Some people serve in the military. They do their duty to keep this society afloat. All you have, the only section of power that you have over the country is your vote. Don't give it up so easily.
In an oligarchic system where all real power is concentrated among billionaire donors and corporate interests, ordinary people only have one form of leverage: their vote. But most people give this away for free based on tribal loyalty or fear of the other side. Corporate interests definitely do this. Only young white men are expected to vote based purely on abstract principles while receiving nothing material in return.
You're replaceable, literally. They'll just bring in immigrants. At your job, they'll replace you with machines or immigrants. If you're not having kids, they'll replace you with immigrants. Everything about you is replaceable. They don't need you. The one thing they need right now, before this country becomes majority not white, before this country becomes governed by artificial intelligence, in this transitional period, all they need is your vote. Make them earn it. Republicans will pander to everybody and anybody else. They will pander to black people. They will pander to women. They will pander to Hispanics. They will pander to billionaires, to Jews, to Zionists. They refuse to pander to us. And if we don't vote for them, then they say, well, you're not doing your job. If it falls to the Democrats, it's your fault. Well, you know, it takes two to tango. That sounds like a you problem. Republican Party's like 90% white. If you can't mobilize white people, that sounds like a you problem. They raise hundreds of millions of dollars. Let them worry about it. Let them worry about turning out the young white men. You raise hundreds of millions of dollars. You've done bigger deals. You've done more. They tried to slide in a 10-year AI moratorium in the last bill. They extended the corporate tax cut within 5 months of Trump getting elected. They bombed Iran. You've done more for foreign interests. You've done more for business interests. Do something for us. You raise hundreds of millions of dollars. You pander to everybody. Pander to us. You want to win? Then young white men are going to be a partner. We're going to have a seat at the table. We are not going to be bottom feeders. We're not going to be crawling on the ground looking for crumbs that fall from the GOP's table. Everybody's doing just fine. And by the way, guess who's in the pocket now for JD Vance? It's Elon Musk. And I will remind you, Elon Musk was a Democrat when it suited him. Elon Musk supported Ron DeSantis when it suited him. He supported Trump when it suited him. And he will support Vance as it suits him. Why should we be any different? When Elon Musk was profiting from the clean energy and electric vehicle tax credits, he was a Democrat. When he needed the favorable governance, he was a Democrat. When that situation flipped, he became a Republican. The billionaires can do it. The billionaires can flip. They can play both sides. They make the politicians come to them because the politicians need the money. So the Republicans and the Democrats are going to try to court the billionaires and offer the billionaires things. But us, well, they take us for granted. They need our votes, but they take them for granted. Both sides should be coming to us for our vote, but they don't because we give it up. They know they can count on us because of this culture war nonsense. Any young white man who is to the right of Ben Shapiro got nothing but derision from the Republican Party. If you were a young white man criticizing Israel, if you had any racialist inclinations, the GOP said, you have no home here. Oh, now we don't want to vote for Vance and it's a big problem? Well, what happened? I thought we were a basket of deplorables practically. Oh, now they want me to bring all the groypers to vote for Trump? Why would I do that? What has Trump done for me? Darren Beatty has a job in the State Department. What has he done for us? What have they ever done for any of us? Me, you, any of us. Republicans tell you, well, you shouldn't have taken out a big student loan if you didn't pay it off. Okay, well, at the end of the day, it's young white men that then have to pay those things off. You can wipe the slate clean for Bear Stearns. You can wipe the slate clean for the banks. You can't do it for the students? Why? Because of the free fucking market? Fuck you. You brought the immigrants here. You opened up the borders to the goods because of free trade. And in J.D. Vance's hillbilly elegy, you know what he says? He says the reason that young white men have a hard time is because you got a bad attitude. Really? No, the reason young white men have it bad is because we're being racially replaced in our own country. That's why. Because we are being fucked by free trade, mass migration, feminism. We do have an elite. They do run our society. They have the power. And with that power comes the responsibility. You own it. NAFTA, free trade, it didn't work. Mass migration, turning America into a melting pot, the best and brightest, it didn't work. Our cities got worse. The country got more liberal. We became alienated. It didn't work, and it's your fault, and it needs to change. And now the young white men are saying, I think we've identified the problem. No more immigration. Now they're going to come to us and tell us, well, what we really need is a colorblind meritocracy. You just need to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps and vote Republican. This is what they fear. They fear the rage of the peasants. They fear the rage that I represent, the righteous indignation, which says, you know what? If we're really being honest, we actually did get a raw deal. My whole generation and my race got a raw deal. We got screwed by you, and you refused to make it right. And now as a result, we're all saying we're out. We're done. We tried it your way. People voted for Trump one last time, and look at the result. Deportations are down 20%. We bombed Iran. They buried the Epstein files. They cut the corporate tax rate again. It's deja vu. We tried it your way. Now we're done. I know people with STEM degrees that can't get jobs. Look at the price of groceries. Look at the price of a home. Look at interest rates. They won't deport anybody. 80% of the country's in favor of immigration now. Trump got elected on mass deportations, and they still won't deport anybody. What do you really have to lose? My vote is the one thing I own that you can't take from me. We will not tolerate this. We will not tolerate everything that he represents. So that's my position on the whole thing. This is the true radicalism that they fear. If at the end of the day, all their messaging amounts to is vote Republican, you're not a radical, because the GOP is corrupt as any other institution. And like every other institution, it does not care about white people. It does not deliver for white people. It only protects its class interests. It only protects the interests of Silicon Valley, Wall Street, Israel, the CIA. It keeps the machinery running. Well, the machinery ain't working for me. I'm not voting for that.
What we observe in this Fuentes analysis represents one of the most sophisticated examples of how the American propaganda system has evolved to manage genuine dissent in the digital age. From a structural perspective, this reveals the fundamental crisis facing American capitalism as it attempts to maintain legitimacy while systematically betraying the material interests of its own core demographic. The phenomenon Fuentes describes, the creation of fake radical influencers designed to channel authentic political anger into harmless electoral participation, represents a new phase in the manufacturing of consent. The traditional model relied on controlling information flows through centralized media institutions. The digital model recognizes that information can no longer be completely controlled, so instead it focuses on controlling the interpretation and political channeling of that information. The genius of this system is that it doesn't suppress radical content, it commodifies it. Young white men expressing genuine anger about their dispossession aren't censored or ignored. Instead, their frustrations are packaged into marketable political products designed to harvest their energy while ensuring it poses no threat to existing power structures. This is manufacturing consent through managed opposition rather than through information suppression. Consider the sophistication of this operation. Republican strategists and their Silicon Valley backers studied exactly what appeals to disaffected young men: classical aesthetics, physical fitness culture, anti-establishment rhetoric, racial consciousness. Then they created an entire ecosystem of fake influencers, publishing houses, magazines, and social media accounts designed to simulate authentic radical culture while ultimately serving establishment interests. These aren't organic movements that were co-opted, they were artificial movements created from the beginning as political products. The psychological manipulation here is extraordinary. These accounts give young men permission to feel intellectually superior and politically radical while ensuring they remain completely powerless. They get to consume content about Bronze Age aesthetics and civilizational collapse while their actual political energy is redirected toward supporting the very politicians who created the conditions they're complaining about. It's rebellion as consumer product, dissent as marketing strategy. The broader context here is crucial. What Fuentes is describing isn't just about the Republican Party, it's about how advanced capitalist societies manage the contradictions created by their own economic policies. The same business interests that lobby for H-1B visas, free trade agreements, and immigration policies that depress wages also fund political operations designed to capture the anger these policies create and redirect it toward safe targets. The Bronze Age pervert phenomenon isn't an accident or an organic cultural movement. It's a carefully designed psychological operation intended to prevent genuine radical politics from emerging among precisely the demographic most likely to pose a threat to existing arrangements. Fuentes correctly identifies that young white men have been systematically impoverished by the very policies that Republican politicians champion. Housing costs, student debt, wage suppression through immigration, the destruction of stable employment, these are all direct consequences of neoliberal capitalism that both parties support. But rather than allowing this demographic to develop a coherent class consciousness that might threaten business interests, the system creates fake radical movements that channel their anger toward cultural and racial targets while leaving economic structures untouched. The Republican Party's relationship to its white working class base perfectly exemplifies the dual function of electoral politics under capitalism. Elections serve to legitimize the system by creating the illusion of popular participation while ensuring that no fundamental challenges to business power can ever emerge through electoral channels. The GOP needs white working class votes to maintain power, but it has no intention of serving white working class interests because doing so would conflict with the interests of the billionaire donors who actually control the party. This creates a permanent crisis of legitimacy that requires increasingly sophisticated propaganda operations to manage. The more obvious it becomes that neither party serves ordinary people's interests, the more elaborate the psychological operations become to maintain the illusion of democratic choice. The Bronze Age warrior aesthetic serves the same function as Obama's hope and change messaging. It gives people something emotionally satisfying to invest in while ensuring that nothing fundamental ever changes. Vance isn't an authentic voice of working-class whites. He's a carefully constructed political product designed to simulate authentic representation while ensuring that actual working-class interests remain marginalized. His entire biography, Yale Law School, Silicon Valley, venture capital, marriage into the professional elite, represents everything that genuine populists should oppose. But he's packaged with the right cultural signifiers to make him appear as a champion of the people he's actually helping to dispossess. The deeper issue here is that American democracy has become a simulation designed to prevent actual democracy from occurring. The appearance of choice conceals the reality of elite control. The appearance of representation conceals the reality of systematic betrayal. And increasingly sophisticated propaganda operations are required to maintain these illusions as their contradictions become more obvious. Most political commentary focuses on the surface level: which politicians say what, which policies get proposed, which elections matter. But Fuentes is examining the deeper structural question of how genuine political energy gets harvested and neutralized by a system that can't afford to allow authentic representation to occur. The question of voting itself becomes crucial here. In a system where both parties serve the same fundamental interests, maintaining business profits, supporting imperial adventures, preserving elite privilege, electoral participation becomes a form of collaboration with your own oppression. The act of voting provides legitimacy to a system that systematically betrays the interests of ordinary people while creating the illusion that they have some control over their political destiny. This doesn't mean that elections have no consequences. Different factions of the elite do have different tactical preferences about how to manage the population. But it does mean that the fundamental structures that determine how wealth and power are distributed in society remain completely off the table regardless of electoral outcomes. Whether Republicans or Democrats control government, Wall Street gets bailouts, Silicon Valley gets subsidies, the defense industry gets contracts, and ordinary people get austerity. The genius of the American system is that it channels political energy into debates about symbolic issues, cultural questions, identity politics, moral panics, while keeping all questions about economic power strictly off limits. Young white men can be encouraged to argue about transgender bathrooms or critical race theory, but they're never allowed to question why they can't afford housing or why their wages have stagnated for decades or why their tax dollars subsidize billionaires while they struggle with student debt. The Bronze Age pervert phenomenon serves this function perfectly. It gives young men permission to feel radical and transgressive while ensuring their politics never threaten actual power structures. They can post about Nietzsche and classical architecture while voting for politicians who serve Silicon Valley billionaires. They get to feel like intellectual rebels while functioning as useful idiots for the very system they claim to oppose. What makes this particularly insidious is that it exploits real grievances to serve fake solutions. Young white men genuinely have been harmed by neoliberal policies. Their economic prospects have been destroyed, their communities have been destabilized, their cultural identity has been attacked. These are legitimate complaints about real problems created by identifiable policies implemented by specific people with clear interests. But instead of being allowed to develop political responses that address these problems, they're fed a steady diet of cultural grievance politics designed to prevent them from identifying their real enemies or developing effective resistance strategies. The future implications of this are particularly concerning. As economic conditions continue to deteriorate for ordinary Americans, more sophisticated psychological operations will be required to prevent genuine radical politics from emerging. The ultimate question is whether populations can develop the political sophistication necessary to see through these operations before they become so advanced that genuine resistance becomes impossible. Fuentes' analysis suggests that at least some people are beginning to understand how the system actually works. The question is whether this understanding can spread quickly enough and widely enough to matter before the window for meaningful political change closes permanently. The oligarchy understands that their position is fundamentally illegitimate and unsustainable. They know that their policies harm the vast majority of the population. They know that their wealth depends on exploitation and their power depends on deception. And they're investing enormous resources in developing political technologies designed to prevent the population from recognizing these realities and acting on them effectively. In this context, the most radical political act may be the simplest one: refusing to participate in systems designed to manufacture your own consent to your own oppression. The recognition that voting for either party serves elite interests rather than popular interests represents a level of political consciousness that the system cannot tolerate. Which is exactly why so much effort is invested in preventing people from reaching that conclusion.